Good afternoon. Today we're going to be discussing the College and Career Readiness Program as part of our K-12 school guidance plan. This is a continuation of a presentation that was provided to the Board Curriculum Committee meeting earlier in August. To help facilitate the conversation, you will note some slides are marked with a black line. Those are slides that have already been discussed. Slides that are marked with a star will be the slides that we're focusing on. Certainly, if there are questions, we will address anything in the presentation. To set the stage for the conversation today, we're going to start with a video by Kevin Fleming, who has spent his career exploring the challenges of the workforce.
But in order to help them navigate education beyond high school, we must understand the misalignment between education and our workforce. Charts like this present a correlation between higher degrees and higher income, showing on average that a person with a university degree earns far more money than the average person without a high school diploma. This perceived higher earnings for having a four-year degree has fueled a college-for-all philosophy, causing educators and parents to encourage going to the university, any university, to major in anything, in pursuit of future job security, social mobility, and financial prosperity. This philosophy has increased college enrollment, resulting in 66% of high school graduates enrolling in higher education right after high school. Initially, they are deemed the successful ones. But what you won't see advertised is the reality that most drop out. Nationally, only about half of those enrolling in a four-year university will actually graduate. Many students are not adequately prepared, occupationally focused, or emotionally equipped to succeed. Since most students are told a university degree guarantees a higher salary, many delay their career planning until after high school or even until after college graduation. But not every degree is direct preparation for employment. With rising education costs, a shrinking job market, and the oversaturation of some academic majors in the workforce, many students end up taking positions that do not require the education they have received at a cost that is more than they can afford. Our world has changed. In 1960, when taking into account all the jobs in the economy, 20% were professional jobs requiring a four-year degree or higher, 20% of all jobs were technical jobs requiring skilled training, and 60% were classified as unskilled. Fast forward to 2018. Harvard University projects only 33% of all jobs will require a four-year degree or more, 30% will require a technical certificate or associate's degree, and 36% will require a high school diploma with certifications or on-the-job training. So while most of the jobs in the future will require some education and training beyond high school, the majority of occupations will not require a bachelor's degree. That four-year degree may offer many benefits, such as increased citizenship and intellectual enlightenment. But think about the people you know who, from an economic perspective, inefficiently spent time and money to get a degree that perhaps they didn't really need for their career. It may be hard initially to accept, but a university degree is no longer the guaranteed path to economic success as it was for prior generations. The true ratio of jobs in our economy is 1 to 7. For every occupation that requires a master's degree or more, 2 professional jobs require a university degree, and there are over half a dozen jobs requiring a 1-year certificate or 2-year degree, and each of these technicians are in very high-skilled areas that are in great demand. This ratio is fundamental to all industries. It was the same in 1960 and will be the same in 2030. Formal education does count, and many students now secure degrees, but few have employable skills, and in tomorrow's economy, skills count more. Fortunately, students no longer need to decide between college readiness or career preparation. It's possible and increasingly necessary to achieve both. Understanding this reality is how you can help your children benefit from their education and best prepare them for their future. Parents, counselors, and teachers must emphasize that there are multiple pathways to career success. The secret is to align your child's initial career choice with their skills and abilities. You see, nationally, associate degree earners range between $27,000 and $72,000, while bachelor's degree recipients earn between $35,000 and $100,000. But this data only accounts for the 25th to the 75th percentile of adult workers. This means 25% of associate degree holders earn more than $72,000 annually, and 25% of bachelor's degree holders earn less than $35,000 per year. Unlike 2 generations ago, having hands-on skills and perfecting what you're good at can be as valuable in today's economy than getting a degree in something simply to get one. In fact, a recent poll found that when hiring, business leaders say the candidate's knowledge and applied skills in a specific field are more important factors than where the candidate went to school or their college major. The time has come to redefine the goal for our children. Is the goal simply high school graduation or just to graduate with a college degree? Or is the ultimate goal a well-paying career where they are fulfilled? Which means a 4-year university degree may or may not be the best option for them right after high school. So in order to prepare your child for career success, and long before they enroll in college classes, help your child focus on self-awareness, career exploration, career planning, and then developing an educational plan. Self-awareness begins with encouraging your child to take assessments that help identify their talents and strengths. This first step is for them to learn that there are academic and career options that align with who they are and their natural abilities. Career exploration is all about understanding the jobs available, the income ranges they pay, and evaluating the skills they require. For your child to make productive career decisions, they must explore and investigate many occupations. Often, children's knowledge of careers is limited to what they see on television or what their family members do for a living. One of the best strategies is active participation in career technical education classes and extended learning opportunities. Participation in career technical student organizations provide the opportunity for both career exploration and acquisition of employability skills which employers value. Employability skills are necessary for getting, keeping, and being successful in a career pathway, and they are transferable between different industries. Gaining these skills early gives your student a competitive advantage after graduation. Next, parents must help their children engage in career planning by setting a flexible career goal based on their personality and abilities and not just on their interests. This career goal may not be what they'll want to do for the rest of their life. It's helping them make a primary and backup plan so they are prepared to pivot in response to life's many uncertainties and emerging career opportunities. This is especially true if your child is entrepreneurial. 77% of students want to be their own boss, and creating good jobs while rebuilding America's middle class hinges on the success of small businesses and startups. Work with school counselors to explore websites that offer up-to-date employment information and workforce projections, and involve your child as a full partner in this process. We need to ensure we're guiding students to pick careers and not just to pick their college major. Finally, with a career goal in mind, help your child develop an education and training plan complete with multiple options after high school. This could include community college, military service, a university, volunteering, registered apprenticeship programs, industry certifications, or gaining work experience. There are multiple paths to success. Your child's education plan should be primarily informed by their self-awareness of strengths and a tentative career goal. Ultimately, your child's first career choice is a personal decision, and it may change many times. Everyone wants what is best for their child, but it's important to be careful not to steer them to a particular career. Instead, continue to encourage them to gain technical skills, academic knowledge, and employability skills. As an involved parent, the key to your child's success is to provide ample opportunities to explore their interests, skills, and abilities, and learn about those career opportunities that are aligned to who they are.
So with that as our framework, I'm going to review briefly a conversation that occurred at our curriculum meeting in August in regards to indicators that are required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education's Every Student Succeeds Act plan. Specifically, as you'll note on the slide, is the topic circled in yellow, speaking of career readiness benchmarks. And the career readiness benchmarks are really a piece of the college education and work standards. So The next slide outlines, again, some information that Kevin Fleming just shared with us, that by 2025, Pennsylvania will have jobs that require some form of post-secondary education. The citations are included in the presentation. Joining me for this conversation are some of our guidance counselors, Tracy from Wayne, Sarah Casey from Radnor Elementary School, Claire Jones from Ithan Elementary School, Clyde Deal from Radnor Middle School, and J.J. Lemon from Radnor High School. We're going to begin by talking about awareness activities that are occurring at our elementary school level. For those who are referencing the presentation from earlier in the month, you'll recall that by the end of 5th grade, there are 6 pieces of evidence required for each student to demonstrate that they have meaningfully addressed the college education and work standards. Mrs. Jones?
So our elementary teachers all worked, or elementary counselors all worked with the teachers to really get a sense of what's happening in their curriculum. And in taking a look, we really looked at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. In 3rd grade, the children do a walk through Wayne activity where they work in groups to visit Wayne and visit approximately 3 or 4 businesses. They do some interviews with the business owners and have an opportunity to reflect on that. So one of our big pieces of evidence is the walk through Wayne and their activities that are involved in that. In 4th grade, the children this year participated in the EverFi, which is a financial literacy program that is a computer-based program, and the children are taken through 6 sections of learning about decision-making, wants and needs, and it's a nice way to really establish an understanding of finances. They also participated in a visit by the Delaware County Technical School, who came and presented with to the children about their various programs, and the children did a reflection on that, and that was another piece of evidence. Our plan is to continue to do that as well next year. In the 5th grade, we want to really focus on the awareness of the career clusters. So the children participated in an inventory where they learned a little bit about their interests and then connected that to a career that they may be interested in. And their reflection of that was also a piece of our evidence. In addition, we also brought the Delaware County Technical School to speak to the 5th graders, and that was, once again, a reflection about that experience and thought. So our plan is to continue many of the things that are happening. We're also finding out more as we talk with the teachers and they look through their curriculum, how there's many connections that we are making throughout the curriculum and their connection with building an awareness to careers. So that's our elementary program.
All right, thank you. We're going to have a similar dialogue with our middle school, whose focus is on exploration. For our middle school, similarly with elementary, they are required to have by 8th grade 6 pieces of evidence that shows that the college and education and work standards were meaningfully addressed. Mr. Deal?
With the middle school, we are using Naviance with a lot of the programs that we're doing, and it's familiar to many of us through the college search and the forms that need to be processed and so forth there. But there's also an important career component to it that we've been using for a number of years now that we're going to formalize in a more significant way. There are several inventories, interest inventories and other inventories that we've been using, something called Career Key, which allows students to get a Hollins Code evaluation, use that Hollins Code then to look at career opportunities that match their skills with the skills that are required in that particular career. There's also a cluster finder inventory that students will be doing, and that will involve, again, students processing a number of questions, talking about their strengths, talking about their personality, talking about skills that they currently have or future skills that they wish to acquire, and then connecting that to the 16 clusters of careers. So students aren't just looking at a particular career, but looking more at an interest area that they might focus on. And that is, again, part of the Naviance program. There's a learning styles inventory that students do as well. And again, in middle school, we think it's really important that kids begin to find out and figure out how they learn best, and then to use those strengths in the classroom, and not only in the classroom, but then as they begin their career searches. The one component that we added this past year was a career cafe, in which with the career cafe, we've talked to the kids about hearing from professionals in the field who will come in. The students give up a 30-minute lunch. They actually eat their lunch with the presenter. And in that presentation, they get to hear about the journey that the individual took to gain their career and some of the needed skills for the careers. And it really, the kids really did jump on top of that as something that they enjoyed doing and really found a value to them. And after they participate in that, they have a reflection that they do, and that's housed in our Naviance program as well. We do several other things. With the 8th grade, we're focusing on a STEAM project in the spring. In that STEAM project, students are beginning the process of writing resumes, preparing interviews. They actually have to interview for certain positions, and they go through that process. We do have exposure to the technical schools. All of our 8th graders will hear a presentation about the technical schools, and then students who are interested, we arrange for them to take a trip to the technical schools. And that's been received very well, the first presentation, and we've gotten a number of our students to participate in actually going to see those programs firsthand. With our 7th graders, one of the things that we hope to do is with entrepreneurship, as you heard in the presentation by Kevin Fleming, that 77% of us want to be our own bosses. I think that might be a little higher in middle school. Seems like they all want to be their own bosses. But certainly, entrepreneurship is something that we want to help kids explore, because I do believe that's an area of interest for many of us. And so there's a program called Road Trip Nation that you can actually focus in on entrepreneurial type jobs, and our students are going to be doing those, going through those experiences and then reflecting on those in a journal. We also have some goal setting plans for our students, creating SMART goals. The idea is to create an academic goal, a personal social goal, and a career goal, all in a SMART goal format that they will process, and then through our Raider Day program, we're going to be reflecting back on those activities. So we have a lot planned, and exactly where and when we accomplish all this, we're still developing that, since we're very early in the process of this plan. So there might be some changes and some additions as well as we move forward.
All right, thank you. You spoke a lot about the collection of the data, and as mentioned at the prior presentation, it's the responsibility of the school district to house that data, which is why we're using the Naviance program. You mentioned journaling. The journaling is done electronically to follow that child as they progress through the program or through our schools. Mr. Lemon, if you could share what the high school is doing regarding planning and developing academic goals?
Sure. So much like Clyde said, we use Naviance as a pretty major tool in the work that we do for students. Naviance has historically been a very sort of college-focused program for the students in our building. They're using it as a way to do research, and you know, we actually submit applications. They can look at statistics and all those kinds of things. But I think one of the things that this process has really kind of pushed us to do is there's also, as Clyde mentioned, a big piece of the Naviance program that's very career-focused, and that integrates information between some of the inventories they do, the career exploration, and then ties it all together with trying to help them understand how a college education or degree can fit into that puzzle, what kinds of degrees they might need to pursue the kind of career that's of interest to them. In terms of specific evidence, We also do a number of inventories with students through Naviance. The first that we do with 9th graders is called the Do What You Are, which is based on the Myers-Briggs, which is a career inventory that you'll see a lot in sort of college career centers for students who are trying to figure out their path or plan. Creates a 4-letter code for them. And connected to that code are a number of different career paths or options that folks with that code tend to find fulfilling and interesting. It's based on a series of questions about sort of how they interact with their world, the kinds of relationships they create, how they sort of connect with other people, with what kind of environments are interesting to them, the kinds of things that they find appealing and interesting. What's generated from that is a specific report based on their type that gives them feedback about, sort of explaining how their interactions with their world work and what that means for them personally, but also connecting through into the database that exists in Naviance that has just an unbelievable amount of information about different careers and career clusters. So what we ask students to do is complete the inventory and then take that report and do some digging and research into the careers that connect with their personality type. And the kind of information they can find in there is really amazing. It can tell them what kind of degree they might need to pursue that career, the kinds of skills and abilities they might need to have, what are their daily activities look like if they're doing that job, what majors would they need to study in college? What do the job prospects look like for that career? What are the colleges that offer the major that they might need to study? So it gives them an opportunity to really sort of dive into that career exploration piece. And then we ask them to reflect on it, to talk about the careers that they've found that look interesting to them, and to answer some questions about the steps they might need to take between here and there to work toward that. In sophomore year, we have students complete a different inventory that's called the Career Interest Profiler, which is much more sort of job and task specific. The Do What You Are, again, is more sort of like how do you interact with your world. The Career Interest Profiler has more to do. It asks them questions about, are you interested in doing something with computers or technology? It's very focused on the kinds of tasks and job things that they might be interested in doing. And then gives them suggestions, again, for careers that might be of interest to them based on how they answered those questions. The report that gets generated from the Career Interest Profiler is a little different than the Do What You Are. It's much more career focused as opposed to sort of personality focused. But again, it does a lot of the same kinds of things in terms of prompting the students to dig into and explore the career section in Naviance. I would say it's something that we, part of the process of going through this 339 has helped us to understand how important it is for students to have the opportunity to do that kind of exploration. And it's frankly, we've been so college focused historically through our office that it's a little bit of a sea change for us, but I think really an important thing. And again, we ask them to sort of reflect on what they've learned from that. One of the other things that we've sort of adjusted or changed in our office that we're using as one of our pieces of evidence is every year when we do course selection with students, we meet with every single student on our caseload individually. We work our way around the building, pulling students out of social studies classes for sort of a sit down with them to review their excuse me, the recommendations from their teachers, to talk about the electives that they're interested in taking, and to make sure that the courses that they're interested in taking are what we have in the system for them. And part of what we've integrated into that conversation is a little bit more of a career focus, trying to ask them to identify as part of that conversation what their long-term career goals, and trying to tie together and make connections between what they think they might want to do down the road and what their course selection options are in high school that might accompany that. We have lots of students who express an interest in studying medicine, being a doctor, being a nurse, doing something in that field. So it's important that they understand, because a lot of times kids don't spend time studying the program of studies to understand what all of their academic options are. But we can have conversations with students about the anatomy and physiology class that's taught for seniors in the science department, or the importance of taking AP biology or chemistry. Students who are interested in forensic science, we have a new course called Principles of Biomedical Science, which is an honors level science course. So trying to make connections for students real world in terms of tying together the courses that they take in high school, the way that they sort of structure their academic environment with what their long-term goals are. We need, I think, should we talk about like the things we're going to look at doing in the future, or is that sort of a different part of this process? Do it now? Okay, all right. We need 8 pieces of evidence for students by the end of their junior year. Not all of those, by any stretch of the imagination, are going to come out of the counseling office. I think the important thing to understand about the way that this sort of Future Ready Index works is that this is sort of a school-wide focus and function. We as counselors sort of own the 339 plan, and we're responsible for some pieces of it. But I know at the high school, administration in our building is working with the different departments within the building to determine how we can integrate some of these career readiness standards into the things that students are doing in their English classes. So adding resume writing in as part of what they do in a 9th or 10th grade English class. Trying to come up with opportunities for students to have chances to do interviews within those classes or structures. Integrating career exploration into what they might be doing in a history class. So I don't think all of that is quite set in stone yet, but I know that administration in our building is working with us and with department chairs sort of collectively to work on how to do that, not just to collect pieces of evidence, but to do it in a meaningful way that actually sort of helps students to understand and make connections that are helpful for them. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lemon. You brought up a good point, is that the college education and work standards are standards that are intended to be addressed K to 12. They are being, we are having accountability measures for grades 3 to 11. So over the course of the year, the counselors will be working with our leads in curriculum and their administrators at their buildings to ensure that those topics are addressed, as you mentioned. And one of the things that, one of the reasons I wanted to have this presentation is that, to make it very clear that this is a work of Radnor. It is not a work of Radnor school counselors. So with that, we will we will ask our audience if there are any questions.
Well, first, thank you all for being here, and Kevin, thank you for facilitating this. I really appreciate it. Susan Stern, sit on the board. And so it occurs for me, like many things in education, you know, things come in waves. There was a time long before all of us where I think education was segmented into, there were the kids who went to college, and there was everybody else, you know, whether they became mechanics or they became bus drivers or pizza delivery, whatever. And then there were the kids who went to college. And as Dr. Fleming's video alludes, somewhere in the world of education, the gold standard of what it meant to get your best education was everybody goes to college. And the fact of the matter is everyone is not well suited for college. Whether it's not their interests, it's not their economics, it's not their aptitude, it's just not, or they have something else they truly want to pursue. And so to hold out college as the gold standard of education, I think, did a disservice to kids. So now we're kind of swaying the other way, back to, although I think it's being driven more by the realities of our world of economics, which is that there won't be enough jobs in the workforce for everyone who has a four-year degree, four-year college degree. Although I believe many of the trades that now exist, you know, you're a mechanic, I still need my brakes fixed, but my mechanic actually needs quite a bit of technological training. So I think we're evolving into a world even people who want to pursue trades still need technical capability. The piece about this that concerns me, and I guess I would just ask our district to be mindful, and Kevin, I really appreciate that you made the distinction. This is not the work of the counseling department at Radnor Township, it's the work of the district. There's a presumption in here that troubles me, and it's not your presumption, it's coming through the 339 plan, which is that kids are going to want to know what they want to be from somewhere back as far as 3rd grade. And that may not be the case. And we can do all the inventory work and bring them through the walk-through Wayne. I'm just looking at some of the things that you all mentioned as specific examples. The decision-making work, having them have the visit from the Delaware County school, and it may spark many, many students, and I think that's great. My concern will be if we have students who along the path of 339 still don't have any idea what they want to do, that they will be left feeling like something's wrong with them. Much like we had the kids who really weren't ready for college or had an inclination for college. We had this gold standard of college, and that left a whole pool of kids for whom that wasn't the best option, feeling less than. And if the gold standard now is everyone, what does this say, by junior year is going to be able to demonstrate implementation of the student's individualized career plan, well, what if we have an 11th grader who still has no idea what they would like to do? And by the way, that's okay. Yeah. So somewhere in this, we're going to have to find a way to convey to kids, we want you to have these opportunities. We want you to see that there's a wide breadth and depth of opportunities. Radnor's not just about getting everybody off to college. We are really going to be refocused on making sure that kids feel like they know how to learn, so that when what they want to do is before them, they have the skills that they need to go pursue that. That's really the gold standard. But that in that along the way, if they don't know yet, that's okay too. I did think the video was very informative. I think it might be something really productive for all 8th or 9th grade parents to see. You know, walking into 9th grade, I literally have met parents who are already thinking about, well, what course does their kid have to take to get into X, Y, or Z college? And I'm sad for those parents. You know, we want the kids and the parents to enjoy the journey of high school. But I am concerned that there's so much focus on every kid has to figure out what their career path is. I don't want to lose sight of that. That's one thing. The other thing is that, you know, so I would ask you, and I don't think or expect that you would have answers to that today, but to be mindful of how we're going to handle that throughout the curriculum. Clyde, you look like you want to say something about that.
I do. So one of the things I talk to kids about when we start these conversations is not what do you want to be when you grow up, but what do you love?
Okay, great.
And what are you good at?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do well? So if we can talk to kids about what they love and what they do well, that's really the starting point. Because if they can find something that they love and they do well, and they can turn that into something that they can earn a living with, that's really the ultimate idea. So if we continue to look and encourage kids that all of what we're doing here is about finding out what they enjoy and what they do well, that's to me the best starting point, and I think that might resolve some of the concerns of, oh, I don't know what I want to do, but I do know what I love.
I think that's a really excellent point. I was more speaking to the concern about this demonstrating implementation of a career path,
yeah,
which is more speaks to the high school level, JJ, in terms of that's a tough bar.
I agree with you, and I think part of the, you know, listen, this is the structure framework through which we are trying to figure out how to give students exposure and opportunity for different things that will help prepare them for whatever the future is for them, right? And I think there's certainly some nuance that needs to go into the way that we talk about these things with students. So I know that when I go into 10th grade health classes and talk to them and do we do an inventory and the results come up, and I kind of work my way around the room and have conversations with students about, tell me about what you found in that results page. What are the careers that seem interesting to you? You know, for many of them, that's the exact response we get, which is, I don't even know where to begin with this. And I think as long as the way you manage it and handle it is that's really okay. We don't expect that the goal of this process is not that everyone's going to have a perfectly defined career path, because that's just not realistic. And as someone who, you know, took a while to find their place to, you know, this is like a third career for me. So like I understand on a personal level that it's a journey that you go through to find the place that makes sense for you. So I think as long as we have those conversations with students in a nuanced way that helps them understand that the expectation is not that you're all going to have a perfectly crystal clear path. We're putting you through these paces or this process with the hope that it'll inspire you to find things that are interesting and appealing to you. And for some of the kids, it does, and it makes connections for them, and some it doesn't, and that's okay. And as long as we, I think, reinforce that idea, my hope is that that'll help to offset some of that. And I think, I hear you, and I think one of the things I've struggled with over the years that I've been doing this is, you know, as a district and a high school that's so focused on the importance of college, you know, we've got lots of kids for whom college probably is not the right path, and how do we have nuanced conversations with them that help them feel okay? And I think this fits into that same narrative. You know what I mean? I think they kind of connect together.
Great. So thank you all for that. I just, you know, that was, when I watched this last week, and I'm glad we had an expansion of it today. The only other question is, I thought that 339 encompassed more than just the career readiness, and I know that, you know, we're going to be continuing to look at student services, and our college and school, you know, our school counselors are a critical component of student services, and I'm just assuming that's going to be part of our work in 1819, at least as we are preliminarily discussing, and I look forward to hearing how some of the other things about the 339 plan intersect with that. This feels like one particular component of 339.
339's focus is college and career readiness. We have a K-12 guidance plan, so this is part of that plan. So what we were tasked to do in regards to meeting state requirements is focus is to add to our K-12 guidance plan, which includes, you know, many of the things that when we think of school counselors, we think that they do, right? We were tasked with adding this career readiness focus because of the economics, right? And so as the district, you know, proceeds with, you know, goal development for this school year, it's really, it needs to be balanced, I guess. You have your social emotional wellness that the counselors are going to continue to work on, because that is a large piece of their goal. But at the same time, in elementary school, you know, they're going to be focusing on awareness. And I guess what I got out of it, not being a counselor and having worked with them for the last 16 months on this project, you know, some of the things that are happening, what they spoke about is like the evidence that we need to maintain in the district for every child. That's like the bare bone, you know, that's like the bottom of the rung, so to speak. You know, so I know in elementary school, one of the things that, you know, they were focusing on was, you know, how do you get along? You know, how do you accept no for an answer? If you're feeling sad, what do you do? And so I think a lot of that lends itself to the efforts the district wants to improve in regards to social emotional wellness, knowing yourself. And so this is a component, but 339 itself is a college-focused mandate. This is the front page of the thing. The K-12, so college and career readiness is part of the K-12 guidance plan.
Right.
And the K-12 guidance plan is what you were discussing.
Well, the good news, and I'll see if Andrew or Lydia has any questions, is that those other skills, how to get along, how to accept no, are also really helpful in the workplace. So they align well with things. I have a friend who, we say nice beats smarts. So, you know, there's something to be said for those kinds of workplace skills as well. I'm going to thank you all so much. I don't know if Andrew has questions or whatnot.
Hi, thank you. I'm Andrew Babson, member of the school board. So again, thanks. So I was just wondering if you could recap what constitutes evidence. So I kept on seeing evidence. You probably talked about that a little bit, but if you could just recap that for me. For example, some forms of evidence at 5th grade level, 8th grade level, later.
So, so an example of evidence, when I spoke of the walkthrough, Wayne, would be an actual interview with one of the business owners. So that document of the handwritten interview. Okay. Oftentimes for some of these we have reflections. So when they had seen a presentation, their own personal reflection about what they heard, what they learned about would be an example of that evidence.
Okay. And I think one of the, I was going to say, a lot of these things that we have students doing are very activity based, right? They're participating in some kind of event, activity, walk through an interview. Doing that thing is part of 339, but it's how do you capture the experience of that and what they learn. So there's pretty much always some kind of follow-up survey, questionnaire, something to stimulate their thought or their thinking that you need to actually capture on paper or within our, electronically within our Naviance system that you can then point to say, here's the student's reflection on their having completed this career inventory. They identified these 3 careers as things that were interesting to them and these 5 colleges as places they could go to major in the things they need to for that career. So we generally have them do some kind of activity once they've, some kind of written activity once they've completed whatever the experience is that they're doing, that then serves as evidence that if the state wanted to say, okay, show us your evidence for this, we could then produce that and say, okay, the students completed this after they did this activity or exercise.
Okay, good. Well, just for my information, is there somewhere that I'm not a member of the curriculum committee, but it would be helpful for me to see a list of what measures or indicators of evidence. That'd be helpful and interesting for me to see that. Good. And then just keeping mindful of time. A couple of things. So some of you may know this, but my field, I'm a researcher, and I research youth development. And so these issues are very pertinent to what I do. And also, as a professor, I can tell you that there are, so I teach graduate students at Penn, and then I teach undergraduates at Temple. And I can tell you right now that there are many students at Temple that, for better or for worse, I don't think it's their game. And it's my job as a professor to help students along that path of self-discovery as much as I can. But I also think, and this is what makes me feel good about what you're telling me, and I'm learning about the district, fairly new to the school board, that if we can start that process of self-discovery, aid that earlier on, then I won't, people like me teaching gen ed at Temple, okay, won't be confronted with having to sort of gently break the news or at least help a student try to retransition. So a couple things. Number one, the students who, in my experience in research shows that the students who are most successful at navigating the post-secondary system, but also beyond that into professional school, like medical school, et cetera, are getting the kinds of advice that they could get from what you were talking about earlier, Mr. Deal, about having people from professions talk about what they do and how they got there. Because that kind of concrete modeling from someone that the student knows in their lives is very powerful. And it can go from fine-grained advice about, okay, here's how you study for the LSAT, or apply to these schools and these schools because you want this kind of range. That kind of fine-grained advice is the kind of advice that can help young people better understand what is in front of them. Another piece is that because the macroeconomic situation is shifting quite rapidly because of many factors, it can be very hard in your work and my work to some extent to prepare young people and parents for helping them guide things along. So the 5th graders now are going to be facing quite a different situation in 5-10 years from now. So I think that having people guide students not just about what they want to do and what they love, but also the situation that they will be entering into and have that preparation. So those two things, that fine-grained advice about the game of becoming a doctor, becoming a teacher, becoming a master electrician, but also understanding the big picture, understanding what jobs are going to be, like from the presentation, that big picture. So it's gratifying and really interesting for me to hear about the work that you do, and I've enjoyed the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To address your last statement, Dr. Babson, one of the things that is required regarding 339, and we really haven't addressed the document itself. The document itself is about 70 pages. What the counselors have been sharing is really the stuff that is going to be impacting the kids most directly and will be observable to to families and to students is the requirement to have minimally once a year. We're starting with twice a year. Now I'm blanking on the name. What's that group? It wasn't a focus group.
The advisory council?
The advisory group. And the advisory council or advisory group is comprised of various members of the community. So there's certain criteria. People from, we had someone from, person from Penn State, from our community college, from our Career and Technical Center, parents, students in elementary school, students in middle school, students in high school, a variety of stakeholders. And the idea is that that helps inform the counselors to create goals. And so the counselors have goals that they're, will be striving for. One might be, making sure everyone is doing many of these top things that they bring up. All these things, as you mentioned, like the evidence, this is all new stuff. Like they've done these things before, but we've never had to collect it. We've never had to ask a student to write like a little essay or write a page about what you thought about Walk to Wayne, what you thought about this career. Like the Career Cafe is an example similar to what you were saying is, okay, I'm a doctor. What does it mean to become a doctor? I really like science, but maybe financially, school-wise, I don't want to wait till I'm 35, but I could become a nurse and I could work in a similar field. And so that's where I think that's what excited me with working with the counselors and learning about this the last several months was that it really is designed, and although the accountability measures we could argue may not be such that we're fans of, the having a plan when you're in 11th grade of what you want to do, but the idea of like looking at awareness, who you are in the elementary school, sort of exploring what you like, what you don't like, and then again, the whole idea is it becomes cumulative. So they're going to have the awareness in the elementary school, then they're going to come to the middle school, and Clyde's going to have access to what they did, and so then he can have a conversation. Well, Kevin, you wanted to be an astronaut in 3rd grade. You don't really like science. And so that kind of a thing. And then again, the handoff from 8th to 9th grade, which is the idea about having that. We're using Naviance just because we've been using it in our secondary schools, but you can use that as a database. So so the information follows a student from 3rd grade to 11th grade. As noted in the October 14th presentation, the true collection of every piece of evidence really is only going to happen, I believe they said, for the 3rd graders, right? Because the ESSA plan was approved through 2023. So I believe that would be the 3rd grade, kids in the 3rd grade class. So, there are going to be times where the district might not make the appropriate benchmark or progress in college and career readiness because they're going to be looking at, like this year's 5th graders had to have 2 pieces of evidence. Last year's 5th graders, I'm sorry. This year's 5th graders had to have 6 pieces of evidence. So a kid who's in 6th grade this coming year, in theory, should have 6 plus 2 is 8. Well, they're not going to have, they'll have 4. So the idea is that you use this information as you go and sort of like roll it up. So it's exciting, but it is, as Mrs. Stern said, it is something that is going to impact, and rightfully so, many of our classes, to reflect on what is the future, what do we need in 2025? We don't know. So with that, if there aren't any additional questions, we thank you for watching. Whomever you are up there.
Good work, everybody.
Wow, you guys should be